Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today I have a new guest on the podcast, Dr. Sean Pastuch. Hopefully I got that right. I told him I was going to maybe mess that up once we hit it record. But if you are not familiar with him, he's a former chiropractor, gym owner, and he's a personal trainer. He built Active Life, and he did that to close a gap between what the fitness industry can't touch and what the healthcare system isn't built to solve. There, Dr. Sean, appreciate your time, man. Really looking forward to chatting with you today and diving into some of these topics.
Thank you, Jeff. You nailed the pronunciation.
All right, good. If you look at my name, and I'm sure my audience is sick of me saying this, but if you look at my name, most people get it wrong.
Yeah, you got to talk to somebody about how you spell your name.
Some people are going to get it wrong, so it's fine. It's hard to, it doesn't look like the way it sounds. I'm just used to it. I told my wife when she married me, I'm like, just so you know, no one's ever going to get your last name unless you specifically tell them. But it is what it is, right? It's not a big deal. So, yeah, man, looking forward to chatting with you. Really appreciate you hopping on here and taking time out of your day. So, what I typically like to do, the basic kind of when you bring somebody on, just general background of what you do and how you got to where you're at today.
I started working as a personal trainer back in 2005 and quickly ran into the glass ceiling that is the scope of practice, at least the way it was perceived. So I was working with clients at Equinox and I was full-time working with people who were dealing with aches and pains without the education on how to do it. So I would go upstairs to the physical therapy suite and ask the physical therapists on staff at the gym, what do I do with this client who has frozen shoulder? What do I do with this client who has arthritic hips? What do I do with this client who has lupus? What do I do with this client who has diabetes and is morbidly obese and gets pain in their foot and ankle when they do too much activity? And the answers I got were so uninspiring. They were all, if it hurts them, just don't do it. Find a way to train them in pain-free ranges of motion. And for some people, this is just the best it's going to get. And I found that unacceptable. So I went to chiropractic school where I thought I would learn how to change the world. And I had high-power medical doctor clients at the time who were so adamantly against me going to chiropractic school because they thought that it would fail me as a discipline, if you will, that I wouldn't get the respect that I deserved coming out. They offered to get me into the medical schools they went to. They're like, just write your name at the top of an application and you'll be in. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to work for the pharmaceutical company. I don't want to be prescribing medications. That's not how I want to live. So I came out and got back into personal training again and saw patients at the same time while I tried to build up my income in such a way that I didn't have to do both. And I very quickly found myself not fitting into the chiropractic culture either. Adjusting everybody who came into the office wasn't my thing. 2 to 3 minute visits after stim, ice, and heat wasn't exciting to me. So I once again found myself kind of on my own, doing a lot of soft tissue work, a lot of rehabilitative exercise, adjusting people when I felt like it fit the need, but that was probably 10% of the time. And to make this potentially extremely long story short, Jeff, I got to a place where I found some success and people were flying out to see me for evaluation and for care. And then they would fly back home and I would have to write them workout programs and lifestyle interventions that would allow them to maintain and improve the results that we'd already gotten. That turned into trainers wanting to know what I was doing for their clients. That turned into gym owners wanting to know what I was doing for their trainer who was now making a living when nobody else was. That turned into us opening our own brick and mortar right here in Long Beach, New York, soon to be location number 2 in Port Washington, New York, and soon to be in a city near you. And our business now is almost exclusively training trainers and healthcare professionals on how to get for their clients the results that we get for ours in our brick and mortar, which is to help people overcome chronic pain to reclaim an active life through exercise education and mentorship.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a nice little roundabout way there of you going through it, but then also now you saw the issues that were going on and then you started working on clients and then that led to trainers and now you work with trainers and kind of helping them. And I'm assuming with that, it's like obviously you can reach more and more people with that when you can help the trainer and whatnot help work on their clients.
That would be the overtly altruistic perspective on why and how we do that. The reality is it's very difficult to lead a team of professionals who all do things exactly the same way.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult to build a company that employees, and we did at one point, 30 people who were helping their clients one-on-one in many cases. And to be able to say you're getting consistent care from person to person when these people are all remotely providing service to remote clients. So we have a staff member who's in, for example, Oregon, who's working with a client who's in Pennsylvania, and I'm in New York. We can teach those staff members our methodologies, our mindsets, our processes, our procedures, all of that stuff. And at the end of the day, if that client ends up wanting to switch coaches they work with, if we need to let that coach go, if that coach decides to move on to do something else in their life, it's very difficult to provide consistency to the client with the next person that they work with. We can do it really well in person in our brick and mortars, and we do. But we found it unworth pursuing to continue growing that online. And we love training trainers, and I don't mind saying we're the best in the world at it. And so it's both fulfilling to watch them build careers and to help clients who otherwise would have nowhere to turn.
What kind of makes like what you guys do different? What do you feel like is different? What do you guys specifically teach like the trainers and things like that? Like I'm assuming, is it a system or yeah, I'm just
It would
curious.
be easier to talk about what we do that's the same than what we do that's different because so little is the same. I'll give you an encompassing statement to that, and then we can dive into it as much as you would like.
Yeah.
Most companies are teaching people the tactics that they need to be successful, either working with the client or building their business. We help our clients become the person who can effectively use the tactics. And so they are successful at applying them. The average company who's developing trainers or healthcare professionals is doing so in anywhere from 2 days to 3 months. And the ones who are 3 months, we're talking about like a NASM CES, corrective exercise specialist. They have 5% of the content in their curriculum that we have in our ALP program. 5%. So when you really start to break that down, you can't compare the two. And on top of the curriculum that we provide, that is, again, 20x the volume of the next highest level credential in our space, we provide our clients with more opportunity for direct contact with our team through Zoom calls in 1 month than any other company that we know of provides in an entire year. Our students go through 13 months of mentorship. We have a 50% graduation rate. We don't want everybody to graduate. The number one reason why people don't graduate our program is because they share with us. And we have this over and over again in our exit surveys. I now understand what it takes to help the kind of client that you teach coaches to help, and I don't want to work that hard. That's the number one reason people don't graduate our program, which we love because I don't think there's any other company in the world who celebrates in the wins channel in their company Slack. This client canceled because they recognized that they don't want to do the hard work it takes to serve the client that we serve at a world-class level. We are like the special operations of personal training and healthcare compared to the rest of the marketplace, which is giving basic tactics and skills and then hoping for the best.
What kind of like clientele do you guys typically have that they work with? Is it like all over the place or is there like specific
It's
subset
not
that
all over the place. The one thing that the primary client of our client, so when we say who's the clientele we're working with right now, we're talking about the end user, the person we train the trainer
yeah.
to help, the person we help in our brick and mortar. They're dealing with some kind of ache or pain that is keeping their body from keeping up with the rest of their life. And so what starts to happen is you're a successful person. You are an ambitious person. You're an active person. You take pride in leading your family, being a key member in your business or in your home. And your body all of a sudden isn't cooperating with you. You try physical therapy, it gets you to a point that you can live without having to slow down because of your pain, but you can't thrive. And then you go to the trainers, and the trainers say what we're always taught to say. We can work around that. We work with the person who believes that they should not need to work around it, that there should be a way to resolve it, that life could be better than what everybody else is telling them life could be. We train trainers to validate those beliefs and provide the service that actually fulfills on the promise that they're true.
And I'm assuming that lends to a lot of people, right? It's not, again, necessarily a specific. Again, it sounds like you have someone's just feel pain and they're not able to live the life that they want to live. They feel like,
Yes and no. So what you're getting at, if I understand correctly, is anybody in pain then? It's not anybody in pain. There are over 55 million Americans who are in pain every single day and will be for the rest of their lives, unfortunately. We can't help all of those people. We don't
right,
want to help all of those people. There's a very diverse group of those people. The one who we are excited to help in that group, if you look at it like a big pizza pie, is the group of them who would say they identify as active people. They are or want to be physically active. They have tried something to resolve the pain. They are not looking for the excuse. They don't want the out where they can say, oh, I can't because of my back. They're not victims. We're looking for the high agency people who know life could be better, but these aches and pains are dictating what they can and cannot do. And for them, that is unacceptable. That's the person. Now,
gotcha.
we don't care if that person is 25 years old or 65 years old, but the average end user client that we work with is 57. So you're talking about the way I like to describe this to trainers who are asking, who would the person be? I would say, picture somebody in your life who you care about, who's not local to you, who's dealing with aches and pains today, who used to be a part of the fitness industry, used to play sports all the time, used to be very active, but hasn't been in a while. And ask yourself, could you tell them, just Google personal trainer near you? Just Google physical therapist near you and just go see whoever's local. If the answer to that question is no, and you have that person in mind who you wish the answer to that was yes, that's the person that we train the coach to help at a level that nobody else can touch.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense there. And so when we say pain, again, it sounds like it's something that is keeping somebody from doing something, right? So specifically, like what are the most common types of pain that we'll like that you'll hear of and then that we commonly see in there?
It's knee pain, it's back pain, it's shoulder pain, it's Achilles pain. Those are the most common things that you're going to see. But I think that the biggest mistake that people make is that when they hear the word pain, they think that they know what it means. They think that we're all talking about the same thing when we're really not. Pain is a matter of perception. And so if we took, for example, a UFC fighter and a regular person, and we had them both go spar with other people, and they got hit the same number of times, the experience that the trained UFC fighter is going to have with that discomfort is going to be very different than the person who's never been in a fight and just got punched in the face 30 times in 20 minutes, right? Tomorrow, when they both wake up, one of them is going to know what that swelling and that discomfort feels like and say, this is just a Tuesday. The other one is going to wake up and say, I need medication. You follow me there? So we define pain as the negative interpretation of a stimulus. That's it. You felt something and you don't like it. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to stop as a result of it, but what we're taught is when you feel pain, stop doing whatever it is that you were doing. We are never allowed that to happen in any other area of our life, Jeff. Think of it this way. What is something that you're proud of that you've accomplished in your life?
Having my son.
You had your son. Why are you proud of that?
Because it's a good question. Why am I proud of that? I'm proud of it because I'm helping develop a human being, and that's something that my wife and I are doing. That's a
How
good
old is
question,
he?
though.
How old is he?
He's not 9 months.
Okay. So has it been easy?
No.
Did you have to foster a loving relationship with your wife that goes into the pride that you have in the way that you raise your son?
Yes.
Was that easy?
No.
Were there moments of pain in all of that?
Absolutely. Yep. Throughout.
Are you
Continues.
are you still experiencing pain as you do it?
Yep.
It is the overcoming of that pain that leads to that pride. Without the pain, there is no pride. What is there to be proud of if you didn't endure and beat something? And so when it comes to physical pain, we're just taught that's a sign to stop. No, it's not. It's not at all. It's a sign to recalibrate. We're taught to live in a cage of hypervigilance. And when we feel pain, that the safest way to overcome it is to shrink our life away from the thing that caused it. We have to move straight through that. And on the other side of it is everything that we've ever wanted. We have to change the entire language around what pain is, what pain means, and what we do about it.
Is that kind of where you came up with the concept of like good pain versus bad pain? Essentially, is again, it's not necessarily all bad there.
It's part of it. What happens is people used to come into my clinic. I don't have a clinic anymore. We have our brick and mortar, and I don't work there, but our staff there is amazing. People used to come to us, whether it was me or our team, and they would say, "It hurts when I zip up my jacket." Okay, so do you want to never zip up a jacket anymore? Do we want to just go ahead and start wearing pullovers? No. Okay, so then we have to get to the root of what it is that's causing that pain. It matters to me that hurts you. It matters to me that you don't feel like you can do that today. But that is not my instruction manual. And now we also have to be able to know how much pain should you endure as compared to when should you listen to that pain and pivot on the plan so that we can come back to it and do it later on with a more healed body. I'll give you a very simple example. You roll your ankle really bad. You're playing pickup basketball. You go up for a layup. You come down on somebody else's foot. Boom, you roll your ankle. You take 2 or 3 hops, and immediately you start butt scooting to the fence, and you're like, I'm out. Game's over for today. And it just hurts more and more until the next morning when you're like, my ankle is twice the size that it normally is. I'm going to go get an x-ray, make sure I didn't break anything. You didn't break anything, but putting any weight on it is excruciating. We've all been somewhere like that, whether it was the ankle in that example or not. We've all experienced something acute like that. That is the wrong time to move through pain. That is the moment in our life when we have to listen to the pain and say, no. But after 6 weeks or 8 weeks of that injury, the likelihood is everything in that ankle is healed, but it could still be painful. How do we decide we have to start moving through that pain? So we give people a very simple set of guidelines. They go as follows. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being stop what we're doing, we're calling 911, I'm taking you to the hospital. That's how serious this is. That's the pain you're feeling. And 1 being you wake up in the morning and you do a little stretch and you feel good. Where are you? And I would say that a 5, for people to understand what the middle looks like, a 5 is I'm very much afraid that this is going to keep getting worse. Are you below that or are you above that? If you're less than that, so far so good. Up next, as you use whatever body part it is that is uncomfortable, does it start to feel better or does it start to feel worse? We've all experienced that discomfort that as we warm up starts to feel better, but we're told to rest it. If moving it makes it feel better, resting it is not the solution. So that's sign number 2 that we're in the right place. Moving it makes it feel better. Sign number 3, as soon as we stop doing whatever it is that we were doing, the discomfort associated with that thing goes away. For example, your ankle is bothering you. You're 8 weeks out from a serious ankle roll. When you walk, it's uncomfortable, but as soon as you stop walking, that discomfort goes away. Good sign. Walking is probably a part of what you need to be doing right now. And then finally, 24 to 48 hours later, do you feel like you were right back in the moment when you were performing the activity and the discomfort was spiked or not? If the answer is no, then you are good to go to continue doing the thing that it is that you were doing, provided that we are managing your recovery at this point. So let me go through those one more time. It gets better the more that you use it. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's less than a 5. The next day, you don't feel like you were still doing the thing you were doing before. And as soon as you stop doing whatever it is you were doing, the discomfort goes away. If all of those things are true, what you're doing is at worst neutral and at best therapeutic.
So again, at that point, it's like what you just said there is obviously you get a certain injury, acute injury. It's like, hey, that's the time when we do need to back off. But there becomes that time where eventually you may still feel some pain, but that's where you want to potentially use these things to get better. Otherwise, I'm assuming you go down that route to where then people are in pain, but then they're also not pushing through that pain and getting to that other side that you were talking about.
Pain is the negative emotional interpretation of a stimulus. That's it. It's a negative emotion. What that means is that there's emotion attached to discomfort. So what happens for somebody is they associate moving a certain way with causing them pain, and they lock a memory in that if I move like that, I get pain. We can see that if somebody just visualizes moving like that and pictures themselves smiling while they do it, their ability to start moving like that again without pain is exponentially faster just by visualizing themselves doing the thing and smiling instead of doing the thing apprehensively and experiencing discomfort.
So it sounds like there's a huge mindset, brain aspect to pain in general.
Of course, pain happens in the brain. Pain doesn't happen at the tissue level. Pain happens in the brain. Like the closest thing to pain happening in the tissue level is you burn your hand on a stove, you pull it away faster than the signal gets to your brain. But that didn't hurt until after. We don't feel the pain until moments after we've pulled our fingers away from the stove. That's because that's how long it took it to get to the brain. It went to a different kind of nerve and got a different response so that we could protect ourselves. But we don't even know what we're feeling. It comes back to the brain later on. This is why people can, for example, in gunfights, police will get shot and not even know it until after they go to the hospital to get checked out. Because the pain is not something that the brain wants them to process in that moment. It's not helpful to them. There are two great examples. There are two stories of men who experience very similar things and had very different responses. The first is a guy who accidentally put a nail right through his hand on a construction site, had to drive himself to the hospital, didn't experience any pain until the nail was removed. Why? Who knows? His brain decided this is not worth having pain over right now. We have to get you to the hospital. Second guy shoots a nail right through the top of his boot, through the bottom of his foot. He looks down and he says, "Oh my God, I'm in excruciating pain." Has to be given an ambulance to get him to the hospital. They don't even take the shoe off until they get to the hospital because that's how serious this could be. And when they finally take the shoe off, what they find is that the nail missed his foot. So how is it possible that guy is in excruciating pain and the guy who objectively put a nail through his own hand feels nothing until the nail has been removed and he is in a safe place? It's because pain happens in the brain. We make an interpretive decision about what it is that just happened and how we want our body to respond to it.
So is that like a learned thing? Is that like a genetic thing? Is that, again, what somebody has going on in their life at the time?
It's all of those things. It's all of those things. It's genetics, it's epigenetics, it's life experience, it's the severity of what actually just happened. It's all of those things together. We know that if people experience significant trauma as children, 3 times, their ability to tolerate physical discomfort as adults drops precipitously. They are far more likely to experience discomfort from physical injury than somebody who didn't have trauma. And I'm not talking about physical, I'm talking about emotional trauma as a child 3 times. And does that mean that if you experience pain a lot, you had childhood trauma? No, absolutely not. Does it mean that if you're in pain, it's all in your head? No, absolutely not. What it means is that there is a connection that we have to respect. Pain is more than purely physical, even if our best solutions to them societally today are purely biomedical. That's why pain is such a big problem, and it's why so many people tell us that we're their last resort, that they wish they tried first.
So I'm just curious to hear a little bit more about what are some other things that could make somebody maybe more resilient, less resilient to pain in general. I know you mentioned that obviously the childhood aspect like that puts you at a higher risk.
The first thing is information, understanding what pain actually is. So that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of people who come through our consultation process who never even became a client, who tell us that they feel better without ever even working with us. So information and understanding is big. And I'll give you a simple example of that, and then I'll move to the next thing. If you started right now you're seeing colors, then all of a sudden your head hurts terribly. Then you're seeing a black dot right in the middle of your face. Then light is really starting to bother you. Then any sound is intolerable. Anybody touching you anywhere is completely out of the question. It hurts so much. Only thing you can focus on is the pain. You'd be nervous, right?
Yep.
To the person who experiences migraines regularly, they know exactly what to do when that starts to come on, and they don't have anywhere near the severity of symptoms that we just experienced together. It's the knowledge of this is what's happening, this is how long it's going to last, This is what it's going to be like on the other side. I'm going to survive this.
I see.
A child gets a paper cut. Not good. They're screaming. A kid falls down. You'll see this as your kids get older. They fall down. The first thing that they do is look up at you. They want to know if you're nervous or not. If you're nervous, they're nervous. The next thing they do is they look down at their body. Is there blood? They don't know what blood means. Their assumption is blood equates serious problem. If you talk to a military special operator, one of which I was not, I have reverence for those guys though. The first thing they do when they land after parachuting into some foreign land is a body scan for themselves. Why would you need to do a body scan? Because you didn't even notice that your shoulder was out of its socket. That's how focused you were on something else. So the first thing is the clarity of what it is that's going on and the severity of that and where that leads. The less clarity that we have, the more the pain we experience. Another way, go ahead.
Real quick. So again, kind of like you said, so it's like if something happens to you for the first time, you don't have that experience with it. So that could be something that makes it worse because you don't really know what's going to happen essentially with that.
Absolutely. And then it's critical that the first person that you talk to about it
Yeah.
is the right person.
So
Because
again,
if you end up talking to the person whose primary mode of income is a scalpel, you need surgery. You know what I mean?
yeah.
If it's somebody who wants to image you, your likelihood of ending up with surgery goes up exponentially if you get imaging done in the first month. So that doesn't mean that you needed the surgery. It means that you have the pain. We can see the thing that's probably causing it on the MRI. It all makes sense. You're in a moment in your life where you're like, if that's what you say I need to do, I will do it. The doctor is trying to do the best that they know how to do, but they're a hammer, so they're seeing everything as a nail. You're now getting surgery or a shot or medications, and you're certainly being told, don't do the thing that caused the pain in the first place ever again.
Yep. That
So
makes
the
sense.
clarity is one. Another thing that you can do is you can put yourself into situations on a regular basis that are uncomfortable. The more discomfort that we experience on a day-to-day basis in a controlled environment, the more resilient we are to discomfort in an uncontrolled environment.
Yeah.
Things that once would cause us pain, we don't even notice.
So on that specifically, you said putting yourself in uncomfortable positions. So that's again, I guess that would just be just what mentally and physically. I'm
All of
assuming
it,
with
yeah.
that.
So physically, train hard. Mentally, face every single fear that you have head on. I like to tell people that most of the problems that we struggle to solve are unsolvable. And so we have to overwhelm them. We can't meet our problem with the level of energy that our problem represents. We have to meet the problem that is a 2 with the energy of a 10. And then it's unreasonable that problem would stick around, right? So we need to be very intense with the way that we prepare our mind to experience uncertainty, discomfort, pain, loss, all of that stuff.
So again, putting yourself in uncomfortable positions, obviously we said physically and mentally. So that's going to be something that if you do that regularly, it's like your tolerance towards pain is going to go up. And again, someone who again lives a life of just comfort all the time, they don't ever push themselves, they experience something, they may be at a higher risk of feeling more pain with that, whatever that may be.
Because pain is a negative emotion, it's so critical that people wrap their mind around this. It comes with the same kind of chemical and hormonal response as fear. We get adrenaline, we get cortisol, we get all of the stuff that makes us hyper alert, hyper aware, hyper focused. So now what's critical is what do we use that awareness and that focus on? Do we use it on what if this is terrible? Or do we use it on what does this mean right now?
Kind of
They're,
coming at, good.
they're very different things.
Basically, it sounds like when that happens, coming at it from, okay, what can I do about this now versus, oh crap, this is terrible, and going down that rabbit hole. That's going to make things worse from that
How
perspective.
can I maintain the highest possible level of agency through this struggle? That's the thing that we need to be asking ourselves when we experience struggle. And oftentimes, a high level of agency comes with asking somebody else for help. You're making the choice to ask a specific person in a specific way at a specific time for a specific kind of help. You're not just yelling out, help, help, either literally or proverbially. Have you ever been around when somebody just goes down and needs immediate medical attention?
Not that I can remember recently, but I've seen. Yeah, yes, I have.
When was the last time that happened?
It's been a while. I
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a short story. I used to run a podcast, and anytime I had a podcast guest in town, I would take them for a walk first so I could get to know them a little bit before we podcast. I'm on a walk with a guest, and I had just taken them to the Active Life brick and mortar and shown them all around. And we joked about the AED that's in there and how it never gets used. It's like we're like, oh, it's constantly maintained, but never gets used. As we're walking back from my brick and mortar, I watch a man grab a pole, like a light pole. And then I realize he's out on his feet. There's a bunch of people around this guy, and this dude is out. So people start to notice. And they're like, what do we do? Oh my God. Oh my God. So I run back across the street. I grab this guy under his armpits. I put my knee into his butt and I lower him down to the ground. I yell to my friend, my podcast guest, go back to Active Life, grab the AED. I yell to the next person, I need you to call 911 right now. We are on the corner of Riverside and Park on the south side of the street in eastbound traffic. Call 911. I checked this guy for a pulse. I didn't feel anything. I listen for air. I feel for air. I didn't feel anything. I start chest compressions right away. I'm not saying this, he survived. I'm not saying this to pump myself up as somebody who's so great. I'm saying this so that everybody understands the reason I was able to perform in a moment of crisis is because I performed for a moment of crisis. Physical pain is a moment of crisis for ourselves that is as large as we allow it to be. If you were running across the street and you tripped, and then you look down and your foot is pointing the wrong direction and your bone is sticking out, that's terrible. What are you going to do? If you can't calmly answer that question, the likelihood is you're going to experience more pain than me from the exact same stimulus, no matter what that stimulus is.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. For me, seeing like broken bones, stuff like that is definitely, I already can feel that like tension, right? So I could totally see that there. And where if that's your default setting to that, like then now you're not actively seeing what you can do next to move forward essentially. And you're going to be more caught up in the pain potentially because that's what you're focused on then at that point.
It requires really strong purpose and trustworthy process for you to be disciplined to anything, especially getting out of pain. Because pain is omnipresent. It reminds you, hey, taps you on the shoulder. Not today.
Hmm.
Do whatever the thing is. I was dealing with severe neck pain for about 7 years. I was doing handstand push-ups in a CrossFit gym. And on the way up, I felt the pop, and then I pile drive myself on the way down. Not the best exercise for longevity. Unnecessary, right? So I knew what to do for it, but didn't do it. It's like the cobbler's kids has no shoes, right? So I tried physical therapy, I tried chiropractic, I tried everything short of a shot and a surgery. I just realized one day, I'm like, you know what? I can be fairly active. I just got to learn how to live with this. It is what it is. And then my daughter turned 5, and we're walking home from a block party, and she asks me to put her on my shoulders. I was in the middle of a flare up. I was like, I can't, Daddy's too tired. I wasn't tired. I was just in pain. And I wouldn't allow myself the honesty of Daddy's in too much pain to do this. I didn't want to believe that about myself. And I was ashamed that I wouldn't believe that about myself and that I couldn't say the thing that was true. I was upset that it was true. And so it took me 7 years to decide to hire somebody on my own company staff to help me with my neck pain. And 6 months later, my neck pain went from an 8 out of 10 every single day to a 1 to a 2 out of pain on some days. Other days I forget about it. I haven't said no to carrying my kids on my shoulders since. It's not an easy thing to do to get out of pain. You have, like I said before, you have to overwhelm it. It has to be the focus. And when you do that, the likelihood is you're going to get on the other side of it.
So for you in that specific example, maybe I missed that, but was there, was it tactical type things that got you through that? Or was it the fact that you were like trying to tackle it on your own type situation
No,
there?
it was everything. It was somebody holding up a mirror to me that I refused to hold up to myself. So it was the exercises that I was given where I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm gonna get jacked.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna bench. I'm gonna squat.
I see.
I'm gonna do bicep curls. I'm gonna sprint. I'm gonna do all these things that make me feel
Yeah.
like the alpha guy I want to be.
Yeah.
That's not the moment in my life to be focused on those things. You can still do them, but that's not the primary anymore. It's not the secondary. I forgot that, and I didn't have the discipline to do it for myself. Also, staying up until 11 o'clock or midnight watching Netflix and then waking up at 6 in the morning to start the day. I'm not getting the 8 hours of sleep that I need for my body to fully repair. It's like taking your car out of the shop when they're 80% done with it and then wondering why it's not performing. My diet wasn't highly intentional. So I was still eating food that was somewhat inflammatory, which, when you're dealing with an inflammatory injury, is going to make it more likely that you experience symptoms on a day-to-day basis. My stress was high. My company would go as far as I would take it at the time. I had to delegate to people who are more competent at things than I am and get out of the way. So hiring someone from our team led to me changing my bedtime, changing my diet, changing the way that I resolve stress, changing the way that I exercise, changing the way that I think, changing the way that my company runs, all for the better.
That's super interesting. As you started saying that, I was like, okay, this is starting to make sense, right? Like, I feel like the exercise side of things that I'm starting to relate, right? Where it's okay, I could totally see where it's like, hey, you feel this, and so I don't need to change anything. I need to keep pushing hard, stay athletic, get strong. So I could definitely see that, and then obviously all the other things you said there too. So again, it almost was like, hey, you had to really dive deep and rethink everything that you were doing. And again, also the business side of things too. Like I totally understand that too. Like you said, delegating and things like that too. And that can be a challenge there when you want to do those things
And
daily.
my business is growing. We're still in like the end of startup phase, but we're growing. We're profitable. We have 23 full-time staff, soon to be 28 full-time staff. They're all over the country and including some in Canada and in the islands. But we are led by me. We are an extension of me. If I'm out talking on stages and podcasts about how to get out of pain and I'm not living that example, who am I to talk about?
Yeah. This was so I guess to go off this a little bit because we were talking about things that are going to make pain better, worse, and how you do experience that. I think the main thing we talked first was information, right? Like just understanding what's going on. That's super important. The you experiencing it, things like that in the past, helpful. But you also said it, things that can help it are also putting yourself into uncomfortable positions, face your fears, things like that. Are there any others that you would add to that list, or would those
Yeah,
kind of be?
I think the most critical thing is surrounding yourself with people who are living the kind of life that you want to live. Because what happens next is pain has a way of taking the driver's seat and putting you into the passenger seat. But the people who are living the kind of life that you want to live would never allow their pain to do that, whether they're making that decision consciously or not.
Yeah.
It's not controversial to say if you want to be a millionaire, make friends with five and you'll be the sixth. But nobody talks about if you want to get out of pain, find five people who are living actively how you want to,
Yeah.
and you'll be able to. People focus so much on the pain, like the pain is the problem. This is going to come as a surprise, I think, but pain is not the problem. Nobody calls the doctor, goes to the physical therapist, gets the shot, has the surgery, takes the pill when they're in pain. Nobody cares. We seek the help when we fear the loss that the pain is driving. So it's when we start to fear that something about our life is never going to be the same again because of this pain. That's when we go get the help. That's when we do it. It's not when we start to feel the pain. That's why so many people live with pain all the time. They're like, you know what? I could live like this forever. I could tolerate this. It's a compromise, but it's a reasonable one. I'm getting older. This is what happens. No, it's what happens to the people who you know. It's what happens to the people you surround yourself with. The people who live and thrive until the day that they die don't do it coincidentally. And the more time that you spend with them, the more that you understand them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's obviously if you're the people you're around, if it's like they're in pain, you're in pain, it's like kind of becomes this like self-fulfilling prophecy where everyone just, yeah, we're just how it is and don't, this is how life is. This is how it's going to be versus again, like you said, surrounding yourself with people who are active and obviously actively trying to better themselves and things like that.
And look, you could be with active people who all have some kind of pain.
Right.
And the reality is you might be in pain forever, but you don't care
Yeah.
if you can do everything that you want to do.
Yeah.
That's the promise that we make. You're going to get everything you want to do back. You might end up being out of pain in the process. You might not.
Yeah.
But I imagine everybody listening to this podcast right now has experienced physical pain at some point in their lives. And 20 to 30% of them still have it right now. What I want those people to know is that they are not destined to live with that pain for the rest of their lives because the treatment that they got before failed, or because the time away from the activity that they love didn't do the job. They have choices and they can be pain free and they can get that life back.
One thing you hit on earlier, and this kind of ties in maybe to one of the potential questions I have and something you talked about most pain can be resolved, but not necessarily with just like exercise alone. Was this kind of coming back to, you mentioned a few things, because within what I do, I really try to focus on a lot of the things you talked about with the sleep side of things. Again, you said your stress was super high. How big of a role does that play in this? So I guess does that kind of go in with like when we talk about pain, maybe it's some of the things we just talked about, but not exercise alone, but how important are some of those things that you talk about in terms of the lifestyle and stuff like that?
They're as important as the health of your tissue. Think about the last time that you were in a heightened state, the last time you were really excited, nervous, anxious, whatever it is about something. Your body's lit up, right? Your pupils are dilated. You have a tunnel vision. And you're like, I am focused on the one thing right now, and that's it. And for people who haven't had that, by the way, find that. It's an amazing feeling to be able to have. Imagine somebody needing you in that moment, like an emergency comes up in that moment. Zing, like you are through the roof. So when you live in that neurological state, in that sympathetic state, in fight or flight for a long time, which is what happens when we experience pain and we experience loss, emotional or mental loss as a result of that pain, we experience stress. When we have stress, our body is not focused on healing. Our body is focused on getting everything it needs to the muscle tissue so that we can run as fast as we can, jump as high as we can, all of those things. We're hiding from a Bengal tiger. Your body's not, let's repair those tissues. In that moment, your body is saying, let's ignore that problem. Can't afford to have that problem right now. We live like that today because of our jobs, because of our relationships, because of money. And when those things come up, they absolutely make it more difficult to get out of pain and easier to end up injured.
And what do you guys, so I'm assuming that's obviously, you said it's just as important as what we just talked about there. So I'm assuming that's like a huge piece of what you teach and stuff like that as well too. And is there anything specific that you maybe work on with people, or is it very like independent on or dependent on where they're at in terms of what they're experiencing and things like that?
Everything needs to meet the person where they are. I'll share an example
Yeah.
with you. We had a woman fly out who has what's called RRMS, which is a type of multiple sclerosis. And it's the most common type of multiple sclerosis. I think something like 80% of people have it. And so she didn't know, nobody ever told her, that for her, a 10,000 step day is the equivalent neurologically of a 30,000 step day for somebody else. Which, fine, we can endure that, right? But we wouldn't want to do that in one sitting. She likes to get 10,000 steps a day before 7 a.m. and then work out. She could only work out once a week because her body was breaking down. So the question was asked, why do you need to get all 10,000 steps before 7 a.m.? It's the only way I can get my job done throughout the day. She is a fractional CMO. Okay. So you're saying the only way that you can do your job well is if you get your 10,000 steps in before 7 a.m. Is that right? Yes. Why is that? So because I have back to back to back to back to back calls with my clients all day long. Okay. Is that how you want your schedule to be? I don't know. I want my business to be successful, and it feels like I'm being successful doing that. I said, okay, take the money out of it. If you could make the same amount of money with a different schedule, would you prefer it? She said, yeah, of course. I said, okay. then what needs to be true for you to make the same amount of money with a different schedule that would allow you to spread your walks out 3,000 steps, 3,000 steps, 4,000 steps? So I would have to cut back by like probably 4 or 5 clients. So, okay, what's stopping you from being able to do that right now? My clients aren't paying me enough. Interesting. Why do you think your clients aren't paying you enough? I don't know. It's just my pricing structure. Do you think you're providing value commensurate with what you would need to charge to be able to lose 4 to 5 clients? So, yeah, absolutely. I said, great. So you're now faced with a choice. Face down what it is that's stopping you from raising your price to what it needs to be so that your body can live healthy, or walk 3,000 steps a day instead of 10. What would you prefer? I'm going to get rid of 5 clients as soon as I get back. And she did. And then she raised her price so that she was able to see the same number of dollars hit her bank account every month in less time. That contributes to her getting out of pain. That contributes to her being able to exercise and live the way that she wants to. You don't help somebody get out of pain by adding exercise or by eliminating activity. You have to look at them as a whole person.
Super powerful to, like you said there, it's okay. So just diving into it, asking more questions, then seeing what is the thing there that's holding them back. And then, like you said, you give her the option with that. And again, it sounds like the big thing being like, obviously, if you're in the super sympathetic state all the time, that's obviously going to make things worse. So figuring out how you can lower that. And that's obviously going to be different for each person and where they're at and what's the main thing that's causing them to be in that state. What about, is there anything, obviously we know sleep, but is there anything specific there? And then from a nutrition perspective too, is there anything specific that you try to focus on in that perspective?
When it comes to nutrition, I am way outside of my league to
Yeah.
talk specifically. What I tell people about nutrition is if you're eating real food and you're hitting your ideal body weight in grams of protein per day, it's going to be very hard to overeat. It's going to be very hard to eat a lot of processed food. It's going to be very hard to eat inflammatory stuff often. If you want more advice than that, talk to someone who's a nutrition professional,
Gotcha.
not me. When it comes to the sleep, it's fairly similar. There's all this talk about turn your phones off, no TVs, like go to red light about an hour and a half before bed. I watch a Netflix show and fall asleep. And I sleep like a baby. I'm in bed at 8:30. I'm out by 9:30 if I get through the episode. And I'm up roughly 8 hours later. And this past week, for example, I was feeling intensified neck pain because I had a softball game last week and I still play like I'm 25 years old. So I chased down a ball in the outfield and I full extension dove for it, gave myself a little bit of whiplash. And so my neck was really feeling it. I did not wake up at 5 to train. I slept until 7:30. I got 9 to 10 hours worth of sleep every single night for a week. Because like I said, overwhelm that problem. It's not exercise that I need in that moment. It's recovery. So whatever works to get you to sleep and keep you asleep, do that.
Yeah. So it sounds like the main thing though, that like for you specifically, you said, hey, nutrition's out of scope of practice. Makes sense, right? Like general kind of nutrition habits. I think a lot of people know what those are. It's just applying them that are the hard things there. But it sounds like for you specifically, the thing that you're going to really focus on is that kind of like nervous system regulation. And that's where you're really going to put a lot of time and effort into really working on that. And in terms of things outside of exercise when it comes
Yeah,
to,
because the nervous system regulation stuff affects everything.
yeah.
The person who's, I just can't eat healthy food. That's a nervous system regulation problem.
Yeah.
What led you to saying that? Oh, you're like your day is crazy. Why did you allow your day to get crazy?
Yeah.
And it sounds really easy for me to say, and it's way harder to execute than it is to actually say it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether it's easy or not. It's essential.
Yeah.
And you know what, a hack I like to give people, like a very simple formula, is whenever no comes up for them, no, I can't. I want you to ask yourself, what would have to change to make that a yes, I can? And then I want you to realize that you are choosing whatever symptoms coincide with the no, I can't, instead of whatever difficulty comes with the yes, I can.
Yeah.
But all we do for people at Active Life is identify all of the characteristics of the yes, I can. And then it's our job to help that person achieve them.
Yeah. So I was scrolling through your Instagram here, and you don't have to go into detail on this. And I know one of the things you talked about was David Wright. It just popped up, and so as you and I are talking here, I'm just getting some ideas. And you said, "Hey, I know I can help this guy." What was it that specifically, or was there some sort of like thing? 'Cause I don't know what his potential injury was that he had that you were talking about specifically, but was that, hey, we want to work on the nervous system with him specifically, or was there something else there with that you need?
I was in a different phase of my life when all of that
Okay.
happened. So what you're talking about for your audience is David Wright was a great player for the New York Mets. Probably would have been a Hall of Famer if he could have stayed healthy for his career, but he had to end his career early because of severe low back pain that was just debilitating and chronic. And I was 1 degree of separation from him. And at the time, I was working with a guy who ended up winning the bronze medal in the Olympics in weightlifting. I was working with more CrossFit Games athletes and champions than anybody else in the world ever had or has since. I was working with other professional baseball players. And I was 1 degree of separation away from my favorite player on my favorite team in the city where I live. And I was like, hey, Steve was the contact's name. I said, Steve, you got to connect me to David Wright. And he's like, why? I was like, dude, I could fix his back pain. And he's like, you could fix his back pain? I said, yes, I could fix his back pain. And he says to me, Sean, I'm doing you a favor by not introducing you. I said, what are you talking about? In what world is that a favor? And he said, your confidence that you could solve his problem without clarity about what his problem is, what he's tried, why it hasn't worked, is all that I need to know that in this phase of your life, you lack the maturity necessary to help him. I was pissed because at the end of the day, if we're being honest now, I wanted David Wright on my shelf like a trophy. I wanted photos with me and David Wright in the New York Mets locker room. And I wanted him to tell the world that Sean Pastuch helped him get out of back pain when nobody else could. You want to talk about a notch in my ego belt? Dude, that would have been sick. And that's exactly why I would have failed. Because it would have been all about me and not about him.
I see. Yeah. So it was more so just again, yeah, that makes sense. But I am curious, was that, I don't know if you know what know now or anything.
No, I was way less emotionally intelligent and way less clear on how to regulate the nervous system. What I was really good at, and I'm still good at it, but this is the thing that separated me back then, is I had ways of getting into the psyche of an athlete through exercise that forced them to face down fears in a safe environment that nobody else was able to help them do.
And that led to the
That
improvement.
led to them getting out of pain. And I had a high level of confidence that a lot of David Wright's back pain was a result of fear because of what he felt when he played, what other people told him, the way he responded to treatment. I had a high level of confidence that that was a big part of what was going on, and that when we could shut that off, he would be able to play another 5 or 10 years. I have no idea if there's any truth to that for him at all.
Looking back now, like if you had the chance, let's say in the perfect world, like Sean goes back five, whatever that time frame was, like would that be something that you think you would work on? Would be the nervous system with?
The reason I think I would be successful now where I might not have been successful then is because it would start with a conversation to find out if I think I could be successful.
Yeah,
And the
makes sense.
only way I would take him on as a client would be if I already knew
Yeah,
how we were going to do it.
I see.
So our intake process for new clients, and the same one we teach to the coaches who train clients, is a 30 to 60 minute discovery meeting where we figure out everything that's going on with you. Why do you need help? Why do you need help now? And do we think that we're the people who can help you best? If we don't, we make referrals, white glove handoffs. Hey, Jane, I want you to meet Jeff Hain. He's great and he can solve your issue in a way that is going to be more efficient and enjoyable for you than the way that we would need to do it. And you don't need what we do. So, Jeff, this is Jane. I'll send you all the details.
Gotcha.
After that, if we believe that we're your only real option, we invite you in. So you come in for an evaluation. If you're local, that's a 90 to 2 hour long evaluation. If you're not local, it's 10 hours over 3 days. because you know you got to go home. Only after that do we even make a recommendation as to what we think it's going to take to help you and then offer to do it.
Gotcha. Yeah. No. So again, instead of just assuming you can help them, you want to dive in, see if you actually can, and then from there give them referrals and things like that. Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. So I guess to wrap some things up here with this. So if somebody came to you with either say low back pain or like tennis elbow or something along those lines, I don't know if those are similar or not. Again, obviously we're going to do that assessment of the person there, see what's going on. But what would be some maybe big tips for that person specifically? Maybe it's all the stuff we talked about today, but would there be anything specific that you would tell them to work on or what? Yeah.
The most common thing that we're going to do with that person first is change their narrative around what they're feeling.
Okay.
Because someone's going to say something like, I have back pain and I can't X. Whatever X is, I can't play tennis, I can't dance. We are going to litigate that can't. Because the reality is they can. Just not as much as they want and not the way that they want. But once they recognize they can, it's easy to help them believe they can more. If I said to you, can you run a marathon today? And you said, no, I can't run a marathon today. I said, okay, can you run it all? And you said, yeah. I said, how far could you run? And you said, probably about 1 mile. I said, okay. Is it feasible that if we trained together for a long enough time with an intentional enough program, you would be able to run a marathon on a given timeline? Anyone with common sense is going to say yes. So let's just say you say, I can't run because I have back pain. Can't run at all? I could run like to my car from my front door. How far is that? 50 feet. Awesome. So 51 would be a win, yeah? Yes. Amazing. You lack the stamina or the coordination or the motor control or the balance or the power or whatever it is to run the mile that we're talking about right now. But you have everything necessary to run 50 feet. So we can build upon that. That is a very empowering thing for somebody to own. Another thing is people will come in and say, I got bad knees. Do you? Yes. It's funny because I saw you walk in with those knees. Did you drive here? Yes. Do you use them for anything else? Yeah, look, yes. They let me down when I'm trying to play basketball. Oh, okay. So you have a basketball injury. Not bad knees. Your knees are not conditioned to perform on a basketball court. And then they'll say something like, they used to be. I didn't have to do anything for them in the past. I'm like, yeah. I used to be crawling around on the ground and then I learned how to walk. So you're in a different phase of your life now where you do have to be more intentional about making sure that your body can accommodate for the stressors that you put on it. And you're not doing that. So if we're intentional about getting your knees primed for basketball, are you confident that you'd be able to play? Okay. You don't have a knee problem. You have a basketball problem. And more specifically, a rapid acceleration deceleration problem in a short range of motion. Right? That's so much more empowering for somebody than thinking that they have bad knees. So these are the things that we typically do when we start with anybody. Then we make sure that they're confident that we're going to be able to help them before we even make an offer. Are you confident that the environment in which we're working, whether it's online or in person, is the right environment for you? Are you confident that the people who are going to be supporting you are the right people? Are you confident that our process is the right process? And then are you confident that you can execute on all of those things with all of those supports? And in all of those places, we're making sure that they understand what they are. Oh, you're confident you can work with us online? Great. Tell me about what makes you confident you can do this online. People are so used to telling you why they can't. They're not used to telling people why they can. And that's why by the time we're done with a consult with somebody, most of the time they already feel a little bit better.
Yeah, this was all super like interesting, powerful stuff, man, for sure. I love just the thought process behind it. Again, it takes that kind of normal approach that people would have of just, again, exercise or corrective exercise. And I think it really plays at the human psyche there. And yeah, it's super powerful. I think this was really enlightening for me. And I know this will be for people who listen. Is there anything that you maybe want to sum up or any main takeaways or anything that we maybe missed or anything like that from our
Sure. I would
conversation?
love to give people a takeaway that I think can make a lot of things better for them. The same mindset that we apply towards getting out of pain and reclaiming an active life can, and in my world, should be applied to every element of life. You're a new dad. Your son is 9 months old. I imagine by now he's sleeping through the night, but maybe not.
He is, yep. Luckily.
I didn't feel gratitude for my kids until my fourth. My first, I had no idea what I was doing. My second, I thought I understood because I just had one. My third, I was overwhelmed with my wife. I was trying to build a business, everything was in flux. In the beginning, when I would lose sleep, it was like, awake again in the middle of the night, crying again. It was that, right? It wasn't until I got my brain to a place of all of the things that I discussed on this call already that the fourth baby comes along. And my wife wasn't breastfeeding. And so I said, I will live with that baby in the nursery until the baby sleeps through the night. And when he would wake up at 11 p.m., I was just grateful to get to spend time with my son alone. And then when he would wake up again at 2 in the morning, I was just grateful that he would calm down on me and that we could share that moment together. And then when he would wake up at 6, I was grateful that we made it through another night together. And when people would be like, are you tired? I'd say, yeah. And they'd say, how are you dealing with that? I love it. I don't love being tired, but I'm making the choice to be tired. And I'm grateful for everything that I get from that choice. That's how I've been able to live my entire life since I realized that was a choice. And it's made everything about life better. The lows aren't as low. When I'm sad or angry or stressed, instead of trying to shove that down and push that away, I lean in. I'm like, why am I sad? Why am I stressed? Why am I angry? What does that mean? What can I do about that? Who do I need to talk to about that? How do I need to talk to them? I'm really grateful that I have the skill set to do that. It's so hard to throw me off my kilter right now. And life is better for it. I hope I'm not rambling too much. Just last week, the number 2 in command at my company. And when I say number 2, I really mean number 1. She just answers to me, but I say yes to anything that she wants because she's better at operating a business than I am. Was sitting outside of a coffee shop and she got run over by a Volvo that thought it was in reverse but put it into drive. She found herself buried underneath this car from the chest down. For a few hours, we didn't know any details except that she got run over by an SUV. Fortunately, she's going to end up being fine, right? But in the past, if I heard something like that happened, I'm immediately jumping into crisis mode and taking dictatorial control of the whole company until she's back. This time, I had the peace of mind to just make sure her husband knew that whatever they need as a family, we've got them. I had faith that the company would be just fine. And I was able to give all of my energy to them. It is so much better to live like that.
Yeah, that's crazy. Hopefully she's okay. That's insane. But yeah, super powerful stuff, man. Like I said, this was super enlightening for me. Definitely one that I'll probably even listen back to. Where can people find you? Where do you want to lead them to here?
If you're just find me at Dr. Sean Pastuch on Instagram. Everything is linked from there. I will say we have a map that's becoming more and more robust every day at activelifeprofessional.com. So if you want to find someone local to work with, we might have somebody in your area by now.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, we'll make sure we'll link that. But Dr. Sean, man, really appreciate your time. This was super awesome. And again, I think a lot of people will find this super helpful. And so we'll link that. And again, appreciate your time and we'll chat with you next time.